Kyroth. The frozen planet looks like a tomb in space. The sky is grey and dull, and the storm freezes the ship as we fight against the fierce winds. In the distance, I see the fortress huge, made of metal and frozen stones. A structure that seems to be crumbling with time. Kyroth does not seem like a place someone would choose to hide. Something here is not right, I think, observing the desolate landscape. The wind cuts through the cold air as the ship finally lands with difficulty. The fortress is even more imposing up close, as if it has been forgotten by the entire galaxy. The team prepares to descend. Adjusted equipment, thermal suits, and alert senses. And what if this weapon is something we cannot control? One of the team members asks, tension in his voice. He is right. The risk is high. I look at him, my mind focused. If it is the only chance against the Obsidian Horde, we will use it. There is no choice. The fortress before us is silent and menacing. We are about to enter a place where everything can change for better or for worse. The biting cold of Kyroth envelops us as soon as we exit the ship. The fortress stands before us, imposing, silent, as if it is waiting. My team and I gather to review what we have. Adjusted thermal clothing, heating devices, and weapons for any unforeseen events. The air is cold, and the blizzard gives no respite. All we hear is the sound of our breathing and the rustling of the wind. But a shadow of doubt settles in when one of the team members, hesitant, approaches me. He looks at the fortress, then at me, and his voice, though low, carries a restlessness I cannot ignore. Nolak, what if this weapon is something we cannot control? We cannot risk unleashing a force that destroys everything we have achieved. I see the concern in his eyes, but I know there is no time for weakness. The weight of the mission is upon us, and if this weapon is our only chance to stop the Obsidian Horde, I cannot hesitate. I cannot afford to have doubts. If it is our only chance against the Obsidian Horde, we will use it wisely, I reply, trying to stay calm. I know he understands the gravity of the words, but I also know that all of us are questioning what we might find inside. Could our salvation turn into destruction? We cannot turn back now. The tension is in the air. We all feel it, but none of us will back down. The fortress calls to us, and we will answer. With each step we take, the fortress reveals more of its mystery. The ground is covered in snow, and the walls, semi-destroyed by time, rise with a heavy silence. Every chamber we explore is filled with remnants of a long-gone civilization symbols carved into the walls and forgotten artifacts. Now covered in ice, a sense of abandonment surrounds me, but I cannot get distracted by it. We have a goal, and we cannot waste time. As we move through the narrow passages, the tension increases. The air is freezing, and with every turn, the feeling that we are being watched only grows. Suddenly, a sound breaking the silence. Something moves in the shadows. Without warning, a frozen creature appears, emerging from a crack in the wall. Its bright and threatening eyes reflect the little light we manage to carry. It moves with supernatural speed, sharp claws cutting through the air. The battle is quick and brutal. The members of my team fight with all their might. I do too, with a survival instinct I haven't felt so strong in a long time. The sound of blades and weapons is deafening, but the most striking thing is the atmosphere of despair. The creatures are relentless, adapted to the cold, fast, fierce. After the confrontation, I take a deep breath. We are alive, but adrenaline still runs through my veins. I look at the fortress, at the dark paths ahead of us. This place is trying to kill us in every possible way, but we cannot stop now. What lies ahead is much bigger than us, and if the answer we seek is here, I will find it. Let's move forward, I say, without hesitation. They look at me, all tired, but I know they are ready. The weight of the mission still drives us. I wonder, deep down, what we are truly searching for. Is this weapon, this force that promises to save the universe, something we can control? Every step leads me closer to this answer. But with each moment, I feel closer to a truth that may be more destructive than anything the Obsidian Horde has ever done. What if we are about to unleash something we cannot stop? The chamber before us is immense, the cold energy emanating from it almost palpable. The machine, or rather, the weapon, occupies the center of the space, enveloped in a frosty aura that makes the air around tremble. The metal shines with a cold intensity, and its structure is more advanced than anything I have ever seen, even among the Federation's most powerful inventions. I cannot look away. What stands before me is pure power, the ability to decimate entire civilizations, to obliterate populations in seconds. The machine pulses with primitive energy, with a deep sound that reverberates in my guts. I know what it is. I know what it can do. As my team watches in silence, the dilemma begins to weigh like an anchor. One of my members, his expression marked by doubt, breaks the silence. Nolak, you're not thinking of using it, are you? I do not respond immediately. The question hangs in the air, as does the truth that if we use this, we are not just facing the Obsidian Horde. We are becoming what we fear most, the tyrants who seek to impose their will through fear and destruction. My mind begins to race around the choice. What we are about to do can change the course of the war. Yes, it can save us, but it can also destroy what remains of our humanity, our morality. I would somehow become the guardian of this destruction. The weight of this responsibility hits me hard, and for a moment, the vision of the weapon before me blends with the image of the cities we destroyed, the innocents who fell, the horror we always sought to avoid. This could save us, I murmur, more to myself than to anyone. But at what cost? Would I be the guardian of this destruction? Our eyes meet, and I know I am not the only one questioning. The team is silent, waiting for my decision. I am there, with the power to decide the fate of many, but also to condemn them, and at the same time, to condemn myself. Now, the greatest enemy is not in the ships of the Obsidian Horde. It is within me, in the choice I am about to make. I am there, with trembling hands, the weight of the decision crushing my chest. The weapon before me could be our salvation, but at the same time, the abyss of its use calls to me. I am about to make a choice that will define the future of the galaxy. But before I can take the next step, the sound of engines echoes, distorting the quiet of the environment. The feeling that something is about to happen makes me lift my head. On the other side of the chamber, something moved quickly in the dark. Fast combat ships emerged from the shadows, sliding through the snow, leaving a trail of smoke in the icy air. They landed with military precision. The doors opened, and figures in combat suits exited. I recognized them immediately. They were from the United States of the Galaxy's Special Forces. But they were not allies. They were something much worse. A tall man with harsh features and a relentless gaze stepped forward. He was not a stranger to me. He was the leader of the dissident faction, a radical group that believed in the supremacy of our nation, willing to do anything to ensure that absolute power was theirs. His smile was cold, without remorse. "Nolak," he said, his voice cutting. "We did not know until now what you planned to do with this weapon. But what matters is that you no longer need to decide. We are here to take it." Those eyes were full of conviction. He truly believed what he was saying. "The galaxy is in chaos," he continued, stepping forward. "The only way to bring stability is with the absolute force of this weapon. It will make us the rulers of the universe." "Nolak." My hands tightened around the weapon's control. The moral dilemma I carried was now small in the face of this threat. They knew about the weapon, knew about Kyroth all along. And now, they were here, ready to use it for something even more dangerous than anything I could have imagined. They were the true threat. I looked at my team, who were in shock, and then fixed my eyes on the weapon before me. The dilemma was never about using the weapon. It was never about power. Now, it was a matter of preventing someone with such a selfish ideal from using it to destroy everything we believed was just. What they wanted was total domination, and I couldn't let that happen. The frozen fortress began to shake with the intensity of the confrontation. The sound of explosions echoed through the rusty metal walls and frozen stones, and the smell of smoke and burning fuel mixed with the icy air. My hands were steady on the trigger, but the uncertainty about what was to come consumed me every second. I knew I couldn't lose control. The leader of the dissident faction was ahead, ordering his men to advance. Their weapons fired at us, and I knew there was no more room for words. It was time to fight. It was time to protect the future. "Protect the weapon," I shouted to my team. "We won't let these fanatics destroy everything we've achieved. The galaxy doesn't need tyrants." The fight began with force, the pressure of every movement. Every strike reminded me that what was at stake wasn't just our survival. It was the soul of the galaxy, the hope for a future without the tyranny those men wanted to impose. But as we advanced down the icy corridor, the resistance of our own team became more evident. "Do you really think this is right, Nolak?" A familiar voice came from behind me. It was Kalin, one of my best soldiers, but also the most questioning. I knew he was seeing the thin line between good and evil dissolving, just like me. I turned to look into his eyes, and my response was immediate. "I believe in what we're doing, Kalin. If the galaxy falls into their hands, we'll all lose our freedom. This isn't about power. It's about what's right." But he didn't seem convinced. He had seen too much. Maybe even he was starting to question, as I had before. As he hesitated, a boom made the ground shake, and a series of explosions near the weapon chamber made the entire environment tremble. But there was no time for that. I had to make the decision now. The dissident faction was advancing too quickly. I fired at their soldiers, protecting the chamber's entrance. The sound of explosions was muffled by the metal's cry, while the fortress walls collapsed around us. The fight wasn't just against the enemies, but against the doubt that was beginning to take hold of everyone. I could feel the weight of the questions in my own allies' eyes. As we advanced, one of my best fighters, Sira, fell to the ground with a heavy impact. A stray bullet, a fraction of a second, and she was out of combat. "Sira!" I shouted, running to her, but there was no time. The combat was everywhere. The energy of the fight was intense, but at the same time, it was starting to weigh on my mind. I knew all this could have been avoided. If I made the right decision, the truth was simple. I had to protect the weapon. But to what extent was I willing to go to ensure it didn't fall into the wrong hands? The battle finally ended, but the victory left me empty. The fortress walls were in ruins, and the planet's biting cold seemed to penetrate to my bones. The sound of combat silenced, replaced by the rumble of structures collapsing around us. The chaos had ceased. But the cost was too high. The dissident faction's bodies were scattered throughout the chamber, and my team, though victorious, looked desolate. Kalin, with a distant expression, helped Sira to her feet. But the injury she had sustained already made her a shadow of who she was. The blood of our own men and our enemies mixed with the cold, thick snow on the ground. I looked at the weapon, now vulnerable, pulsating with a cold and fierce energy. Its presence was threatening, as if it was waiting to be unleashed. The temptation to use it was great. I knew I could end the Obsidian Horde once and for all. The galaxy would be safe. But for how long? I walked toward the machine's structure with an overwhelming weight in my chest. The voices of my team echoed, questioning my decision, doubting my motives. Kalin approached once more. "Nolak, we can use it. We can defeat the Obsidian Horde. We can save everyone." His voice was laden with uncertainty, but hope still shone in his eyes. But I knew the answer. I knew that if we used this weapon, we would lose our humanity. The galaxy didn't need another weapon of destruction. It didn't need more tyranny, more oppression. The true war wasn't against the Obsidian Horde. It was for the soul of the galaxy. Without hesitation, I placed my hand on the weapon's structure. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from the decision not to use the power we hold. I murmured to myself, knowing that words wouldn't alleviate the weight of the loss. The true war is for the soul of the galaxy. With one final gesture, I activated the mechanism that destroyed the weapon, the last chance to save us from extinction. The cold energy exploded, consuming the machine in a wave of blue light and fragments of metal and stone. The fortress trembled even more with the destruction, and a deadly silence took over the environment. There was no more of the power we so sought. The galaxy was still at the mercy of the Obsidian Horde's threat. And now we had only one hope, our unity, and the truth, raw and unfiltered, was that even with the weapon's power in our hands, we wouldn't have guaranteed anything. The battle for the galaxy's freedom was still to come. I looked at my team, at their tired faces, at the wounds they would carry forever. There were no winners. There were only survivors. Kyroth's cold now seemed to extend throughout the galaxy. But looking at the icy horizon, I knew that, at least for now, we had made the right choice. After destroying the weapon, a forced peace took over Kyroth, but this feeling of relief was short-lived. As we began to explore the fortress's wreckage, the last thing I expected was a message. The communicator in my pocket beeped insistently, interrupting the planet's icy silence. It was an urgent message. The voice was low, rough, almost muffled. The tension in the room increased as I listened to the words, which carried a weight as great as the weapon's destruction in our hands. Before dying, he told me, the dissident faction, they were not who they claimed to be. The leader, the commander, he was an infiltrated agent of the Obsidian Horde. The true enemy is within our own nation. I froze. The words echoed in my mind, repeating, as if the entire universe had paused for a moment. My mind couldn't process the reality. No, this can't be true, I murmured to myself, but there was no denial that could erase the truth unfolding before me. The threat was closer than I had imagined. It wasn't just the Obsidian Horde I needed to face, but the traitors in my own ranks. They were within the United States of the galaxy all along, moving in the shadows, manipulating everything, until finally, the time came to reveal their true purpose. With a look of shock on my face, I looked at my team. They were also incredulous, as if reality had distorted around us. I could feel the tension, the fear, the doubt. The battle wasn't over, it was actually just beginning. We have to accelerate the search, I said, more to myself than to anyone else. The traitor knows more than you think. The key to understanding the Obsidian Horde is closer than we thought. Kyroth's cold now seemed insignificant compared to what truly awaited us. The enemy was closer than ever, and the true war for the galaxy was still to come. In the next episode, I will discover something I never expected. The true threat is closer than I imagined. A traitor, hidden right in the heart of the United States of the galaxy, may be the missing piece to unravel the dark secrets of the Obsidian Horde. Who is he, and how far does his loyalty go? The answers could change everything.